I don't really watch a lot of Netflix shows, but I know that a lot of their movies suck. Hey, what's up guys? I'm in a different position today because there are men scraping moss off my roof and they're right in front of my window, and I'm not keen on having my camera like on the windowsill and then they're looking right in on me as I'm talking to myself or to my camera or to you guys, whichever way you want to view it. Whichever way you spin it, it kind of looks weird. So we're on the bed again. The bed is where we go when the window is unavailable. Today I want to talk about something that's related to that new program that's on Netflix called Enola Holmes. Millie Bobby Brown is in it and she plays the younger sister of Sherlock Holmes. And it just reminded me of why I don't like things such as this, and I'm going to tell you the reason why. I have a big pet peeve against using characters that don't belong to you. And I did my research, I double checked because I don't read Sherlock Holmes and I wanted to be 100% sure that I was right in this. And it is true that Enola Holmes is not a character written by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the man who wrote Sherlock Holmes. And she was an invention that came up around 2006 time, which means way after Arthur Conan Doyle's time, and means that someone decided to create a character that was Sherlock's sister. And I don't like that. I find the idea of using a character that doesn't belong to you, like the book version of clickbait or the movie version of clickbait. You see the name Holmes and you think, oh, that's like Sherlock, I'm gonna watch that, or oh, that's like Sherlock, I'm gonna buy that. And I think it's a very cheap way to get people to buy your work, for one thing, and most of the time these retellings or these new points of view on stories that have been, usually they're classic stories that have been solidified in literature or in film for decades now. Usually it doesn't really add anything or make anything different or really do anything that warrants this edition of a character or this retelling, and it's usually just crap. Now I haven't watched Enola Holmes mainly for these reasons, because I just absolutely can't stand it when people use characters in universes that don't belong to them, because it means that they don't have to build a universe. They don't really have to work hard on a character either. And they don't really have to do a lot of environment building either. I mean, I always talk about this kind of thing as if I'm like the best, like as if my book is like the best thing ever. But at least I can take the credit that my book's like the idea is original. I didn't take any characters from any other well-known pieces of literature. And it all came from my brain. I didn't think, oh, let's give, I don't know, Captain America a sister and write a story about that and all the Marvel fans will read my book. Another good example of this kind of writing in action is a book I read near the start of lockdown called The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. And the reason that I bought this book was because I thought it was going to be the story of Frankenstein by the mother of science fiction, Mary Shelley. I thought it was going to be the story of Frankenstein from the point of view of Elizabeth Lavenza, I think it's pronounced, Lavenza slash Elizabeth Frankenstein, because in Mary Shelley's original text she doesn't really play a big role and she could have been up to anything while all the stuff with Frankenstein was going on. So I thought it would be an interesting read to see someone's interpretation of what the heck Elizabeth Frankenstein was up to when Frankenstein and his monster were off doing their business. Another theme that I notice with these kind of pieces of media that take characters or ideas or stories that don't belong to them is that they try to say it didn't happen the way you know it did. Like, take The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein for example, spoilers for the end of the story, but it basically says everything you read in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein is wrong. It is the insane ramblings of Victor Frankenstein, and Elizabeth is telling the actual story now, and this is actually what happened. And you don't get that until the end. I mean, again, spoilers for Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, but it's like a classic novel, so if you haven't like really read it by this point, I don't really know if you really would. It became clear that the author Kirsten White wasn't going to kill Elizabeth Frankenstein, even though Frankenstein's monster kills her in Mary Shelley's story. And I sort of knew. I knew the author wasn't going to have the balls to kill off its main character. They never usually do. but I didn't expect her to write that everything you read in Mary Shelley's story was wrong, and just Victor Frankenstein being insane and trying to make himself look good and blah 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 blah. And someone wrote on the back, Mary Shelley would love this story. Mary Shelley would turn in her grave if she read The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. And obviously I can't speak for dead people. I can't speak for Arthur Conan Doyle and say how he would actually feel about someone writing that Sherlock Holmes had a sister, Enola. But it comes off as terrible. And the character very much struck me as she's not like other girls. She doesn't really fit in her etiquette school, and she's cool, she's smart, she solves mysteries, and just all the kind of thing you expect from a fan fiction writer adding their own OC into the Sherlock Holmes universe, except this one is kind of established since she does exist, except I personally wouldn't consider her canon because Arthur Conan Doyle didn't write her. It's the same way that the 6th Hitchhiker's book, written by, I can't remember who it is, Owen Colfer, I think? I could be wrong. I don't consider that canon, because Douglas Adams didn't write it. That book was not needed. And it has nothing to do with anything that, well, maybe it did. Maybe this author looked at some of Douglas Adams' research and writing, but it still isn't Douglas Adams. Why would you write a book in Douglas Adams' universe if he's dead? You don't have the right to do that. And maybe I'm getting worked up for dead people. Like, maybe I'm just like, I'm defending Mary Shelley and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Douglas Adams and getting riled up on their behalf. But it does bother me because it feels low effort, it feels lazy, and not a lot of creativity has to go into it because you're already inserting yourself into another world. And why should fan fiction writers get ridiculed and told that their writing is sad and pathetic when there's authors out here actually physically getting work published based in universes with characters that don't belong to them, and yet fanfiction is the weird thing that people are doing? I would consider The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein fanfiction. It's fancy fanfiction that got published into a book that people actually liked. There is an exception to this kind of thing. For example, the TV show Doctor Who, it has novels. It is novels written by various authors, and the reason why that wouldn't bother me the way that Enola Holmes or The Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, or I can't even remember what the 6th Hitchhiker's book is called, but the reason that doesn't bother me like them is because Doctor Who is in a universe where loads of adventures could happen that you don't know about and you don't hear about because there's only a certain amount of time in episodes to sort of show particular things. And Doctor Who has been going on since 1963. And the guy who invented the Daleks isn't alive anymore, the woman who helped put Doctor Who together isn't alive anymore, the man who created Doctor Who isn't alive anymore, but the show continues on because technically it's property of the BBC, and it gets passed on creatively, if that makes any sense. And as I say, there's loads of adventures that you don't get to see in the series because each series has 13 episodes and you can't see every single adventure. So you get to see bits and pieces that wasn't written into the show for you to see on TV. You get to read about it instead. It's different than thinking, Frankenstein, I'm gonna take his wife and turn her into the true heroine of the story and pretty much retcon everything Mary Shelley wrote. Do you see what I mean? Because, like, the Doctor Who books, for example, don't retcon anything in the TV series. And it doesn't say that, oh, the Doctor has a sister, or the Doctor has, like, a half-brother on his mother's side, that kind of thing, who's more badass than he is. I mean, before this Enola Holmes thing even came out, I'm pretty sure Stephen Moffat in his BBC series Sherlock did Sherlock's sister. He did the whole Sherlock sister thing, and it went down like a cold bag of sick. Nobody liked it. Well, I say nobody liked it. Some people probably liked it. The Cumberbitches probably liked it. And Cumberbitches being the people who love Benedict Cumberbatch, if that wasn't obvious. And it just strikes me as wrong. It feels wrong. I don't know how anyone else doesn't see what I see when these kind of things become popular and get published when they're not done by the person who created it. And of course it's not like Sherlock's sister who's on par with him. It's Sherlock's sister who's smarter than he is and cleverer than he is and better than he is in every way. Basically an OC. OC being original character. I'm so used to using these terms that I forget that some people watching probably don't know. OC is a abbreviation you would use in the fanfiction world for a character that you completely invented yourself and have inserted into the universe yourself. Like, for example, if you wrote a story and invented yourself as the companion for the Doctor and put yourself into a Doctor Who story, that would be your OC. And OCs tend to be very Mary Sue, you know, they're perfect, the main characters love them, and you know, because you're writing yourself, you write yourself and you're sort of thinking like, yes, I'm perfect, the Doctor loves me, and blah 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 blah, that kind of thing. It can't just be a new character that you've written who is on par or better in their own regards. It has to be that they're better, or their story is the real story and everything else you've known is a lie, and it's just, I find it very insulting. Particularly the Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein, because Mary Shelley is the mother of science fiction, and it seems kind of insulting to kind of say, yeah, all of the thing that she wrote in her story, Victor Frankenstein was lying. It's, you're trying to make yourself feel good, and people actually like the Dark Descent of Elizabeth Frankenstein. Anyway guys, what do you think? Do you think that it's new and creative to make stories like this? Do you agree with me that it's not creative? Let me know down below. Like, follow, subscribe, follow my socials if you want, buy my book if you want. Don't do any of that if you don't want to. I don't want you there if you don't want to be there. And remember, try and be a bit more original. Although nothing is original anymore, is it? Kind of a depressing end note, but it's true.